we were having before we went to news, and we were talking about the advertising industry in the wake of what happened with the Clicks hair advertisement. And one of the questions we are asking is, how much have marketing companies done to change strategies to fit in with South Africa's realities in an inclusive democracy? And we are in discussion with Gail Schimmel, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Advertising Regulatory Board, and Shannon-Leigh Landers, a PhD candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, specializing in the field of identity and representation. Ladies, thank you so much for staying on, because I think there's just so much more to talk about in this regard. I just want to get back to the conversations. And Shannon-Leigh, before the break, you were talking about the means of production, the issue of transformation. And one of the things is that what is happening at the moment is that we are talking about this because, once again, there's been a controversy. Is that not part of the problem, that we seem to only talk about what's happening in the advertising industry at controversial moments?
Well, this seems to be the issue through every sector, Sakina. And yet again, I think Gail is more apt at talking about the intricacies of advertising. But in terms of representation in South Africa, this has been an issue, and it continues to be an issue. I mean, I'm a lecturer at a film school, and my first-year students have to produce a television show. And the first thing we discussed in terms of conceptualization of this television show was about the importance of representation. And when I got to talking to these young Black intelligent females, one of the biggest issues they found that needed to be discussed on a television platform was the issue of Afro-textured hair. So this speaks to all sectors in society, and it speaks to the problem of representation, the widespread representation of this type of hair in the mainstream society. So I think advertising is just a microcosm of what's happening in South Africa in terms of inclusive policies, and not just policies in terms of window dressing, but policies that are actualized.
And Gail, from your perspective, when working with the advertising companies and the owners of these companies, we talk about, intentional effort at redress. Do you think enough is being done on that level to ensure that we are getting through, more diverse, not just, concepts, but also just views in these companies, and that the owners really care that they are more inclusive and more representative of what South Africa is today? Gail?
I'm not exactly the right person to speak to about this, because I deal with the complaint side and I deal with the content of advertising. And it's more the ACA who deal with the transformation within the industry. But what I'm seeing is, I think it goes to this hair politics issue a bit, that often the people who are making an effort, the people who are trying to certainly make the content of advertising more diverse, more representative, are doing it with a club instead of with finesse. They don't necessarily have their finger on the pulse of what the actual issues are. I find it inexplicable that anyone working in hair in South Africa is not aware that for Black women, hair is political. If you're working in hair and you don't know that, you're not listening. And you need to be listening, and we need to be listening on so many levels. We need to be reading books by people who don't look like us. We need to be watching movies made by people who don't look like us. And whatever our look like us is, we all need to be listening to each other, and we all need to be hearing each other's reality, because that is the only way that things like advertising are going to start being representative of the proper issues. But it has, with this particular matter, I think the anger comes from that intersection of racism and hair politics. And I don't know how someone involved in this field was not aware of that as an issue.
So do you receive many complaints, Gail, though, about the lack of inclusivity, about the lack of diversity in our advertising overall?
Okay, I'm laughing because we receive a lot of complaints, and I'm afraid to say 90% of them are mad. So if you make any ad, we will get a complaint saying there are too many white people, there are too many Black people. It's the same ad we're talking about. The white people all look bad, the Black people all look bad. We get it, and and we get it from we get it across the board. We get it from white people, we get it from black people, and we often get it from white people who are being oversensitive on behalf of black people, and then you show it to a black person and they go like, huh, what? Black people who are being oversensitive on behalf of white people. Race is an issue in this country. There are three things in this country that are going to get us complaints: religion, number one; number two, race; number three, sex. We get complaints.
So just moving forward, if we look at the context and the backdrop against which all of this is taking place currently, it is, of course, during our Heritage Month. And we know how complex and diverse our South African society is. We know what our historical context is, Shannon-Leigh. How do we move forward from here on in? How do we make sure that we don't come back to this space a year, 6 months from now, because we've been here before?
I know, and Sakina, this is such a complex question you're asking, because I think it's multi-layered and it's multi-level. I think on an individual level, as I said, as a lecturer, I educate my students about the importance of representation and identity when they are pitching concepts, especially as students who are going to go out into the media industry. But I think there's a whole lot of unlearning that needs to happen, and this needs to start at an education level, at a basic education level. I mean, we have schools that are telling black students that their hair is unruly and wild. And this is a trauma that we have to deal with as a South African society. I know in my own family background, it has been an issue. Hair has been something that has caused me personal trauma. To get to this point where I'm wearing my hair bold and proud and natural it speaks volumes for the micro movements we're making, but I think a lot more needs to be done. And even product placement in stores, you see all the black female hair products or Afro textured hair products together, even if it's chemical. I use natural products, and we've got relaxers placed next to natural products because it's seen as black hair, so I think it's a multi-pronged approach, Sakina, that is needed.
And that's an interesting point, because my daughter and someone else pointed out to me that you actually have the products for black hair in a different aisle altogether. Definitely. It's a different segment in the store, and something that I hadn't necessarily noted, but she brought that to my attention, because I think you would be aware, Shannon-Leigh, that right now there's a whole generation of young black women who are totally embracing their natural hair, and it's a big thing right now, but those products are so expensive.
They are. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that people are starting to make them here in my community, so I'm supporting local. But I mean, you go to the shop and one of these products are like 249 Rand because they're made overseas. So with this movement growing and becoming popular in South Africa, these products will become more affordable, and I think it speaks to the importance, yet again, of representation. And steps like this and adverts like what Clicks has promoted out there takes us 10 steps backwards. But I'm so proud of the young black women embracing their hair. And if we continue to support natural, this movement and the industry will grow locally. And just on that point, Sakina, I'm so proud of the agency that Black African women have used as a people patronizing Clicks. They've said, I'm not going to support Clicks, and this is something that we can do. We need to use our power as consumers to hold these companies accountable.
And just finally, from your side, Gail, the CEO of Clicks says that all those who were involved have been suspended and they will undergo disciplinary hearings. Clicks taking all the right steps, it would seem, but, people are saying the apology is not enough. The steps that they are taking right now are not enough. Just as a regulatory authority, how would you suggest, for example, we move forward on this issue?
So my view is not very popular on this. I'm being a bit attacked on Twitter around it, but As an organisation, we are not a punitive organisation. We withdraw the advertising because we're about protecting consumers. So if an ad is causing harm, we ask the advertiser to withdraw that ad, because then that stops the harm. And I'm a little bit concerned that there is so much focus on punishment here, instead of focus on education and dialogue. And I'm worried that the people who at the end of the day are going to lose their job because of what happened and because of the repercussions for the brand, the repercussions for the companies, the people who are going to lose their job, we all know how this goes. It's not going to be the top people who lose their jobs. It's going to be the people supporting 5 families on their one salary who lose their jobs when that product category drops, when sales drop. And I worry about that. I worry about this punitive mindset when I think we should be taking it. Sad that we once again have an opportunity to be having these conversations, but take the opportunity to have the conversations, to do the education, to be making people understand what went wrong here so that it doesn't happen again.
Have we not been doing that, though, Gail? Have we not been doing that and landing in exactly the same spot?
But I question, have we been doing it? Has there been enough education happening? Has there been enough talk happening? Has there been enough? I don't think punishment is going to, what it's going to do is it's going to create an environment where advertisers are petrified of doing anything, and we have very bland, staid advertising, and we don't want that. We want exciting advertising. We want world-class advertising in South Africa. We don't want frightened advertising in South Africa. But I do agree with you. I cannot, when this came up on my Twitter feed, I just felt a heavy load on my shoulders, like, really, are we still here? Is this really still happening?
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap this in the interest of time, but there's still so much more to discuss. The public and its power, as has clearly been demonstrated, that has led to the sequence of events that we've seen. Much more to talk about. But thank you so much for the time being to our guest this morning, Gail Schimmel, the CEO of the Advertising Regulatory Board, and Shannon-Leigh Landers, PhD candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, specializing in the field of identity and representation. And we've, of course, been discussing developments around the clicks controversy and discussing marketing and advertising in the South African context. Well, we are going to take a quick, no, we're not taking a